Hello and welcome to the EisnerAmper Engaging Alternatives podcast series. I'm your host, Elana Margulies-Snyderman, and with me today is Christina Ansted and Michael James, Senior Managing Partners at RCP Venture Capital, a Cambridge, Massachusetts-based VC firm that invests in biotech and therapeutics. Today, Christina and Michael share with us the outlook for VC investing in those industries, including the greatest opportunities and challenges. They will also share how the firm integrates ESG, DEI, and more. Hi, Christina and Michael. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for having us.
Hi, Elana. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. So to kick off the conversation, tell us a little about the firm and how you both got to where you are today.
Absolutely. So we come from, I personally come from the biotech background and industry, and together we founded RCP, which is Rapid Commercialization Partners. And RCP's focus is to work with clinical stage life sciences companies to optimize commercialization. And our primary model is driven by a private markets practice, which is led by Michael. And as part of that practice, we often found ourselves making natural introductions between some of our earlier stage clients and our private market partners who were looking for investment, but quickly discovered that there was rather a large chasm between the amount of risk that some of these earlier stage companies represented and the amount of capital that our private market partners would need to deploy, and which created a sense of where these what were very valuable companies and are very valuable companies weren't getting the adequate funding that they required. And they were stuck in what we call the valley of death, where they needed data to get the money and money to get the data. And no one really had a good answer to this question, and started to evolve for us to say, we are in a really unique position where we're identifying high value assets with strong leadership teams, and we're in a position to make investments. We could be in a position to make investments at a smaller scale that would really serve as a bridge to what eventually we hope would be higher level funding. And that really is what set the foundation for RCP Venture Capital.
And it really is a very unique opportunity to become more of a value creation investor than just a pure financial play. And with that proximity of Rapid Commercialization Partners to the fund itself, allows for all kinds of resources across the multiple stages of commercialization. So we're really excited about what we're building.
And as a follow-up, Christina and Michael, given your focus on investing in biotech and therapeutics, love to hear your overall high-level outlook for those spaces.
Sure. It's a great question. I think anyone that's been in or around the industry over the last 3-4 years understands how challenging it has been for emerging companies, for fundraising, for investment. And we have been seeing that that's starting to soften a bit. So I think we're moving in a more positive direction. We're probably not at pre-pandemic levels quite yet, but it certainly seems to be going in the right direction. Although I would say still maintaining cautious optimism as we move forward, where there's going to be a large focus, a continuous focus on data, on doing more with less capital, which is going to drive the need for temperate growth as we head into 2025. But I think probably it's going to be, my suspicion will be somewhere between Q2 and Q3 2025 before we really start to see that much desired momentum in the industry.
Yeah, and it's really created a unique opportunity where there are companies across the space that may not have been available for investment, as they were 3 or 4 years ago. And to be able to engage with these companies at a level where we can truly add value and engage with them is, again, creating a unique opportunity where some might say it's maybe not the best time to start a fund. We believe it actually creates a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and as a follow-up, Michael, Christina, I'd love for you to touch on some of the specific greatest opportunities you see in your spaces and why.
That's a great question. I think there's lots of places that you can go. I think most commonly we're starting to see, obviously there's a large focus now on obesity, where again, 3 years ago, that wasn't a market that had a lot of interest. It was very difficult to enter, but obesity, there is maintaining an interest in rare disease. I think in terms of areas for investment, cell and gene therapy, specifically like next-gen gene therapies, certainly AI, machine learning is going to play a role from a perspective of discovery, but also precision medicine and in diagnostics, allowing us to perhaps identify what were previously considered like undruggable targets, but also thinking about, from a treatment perspective, the right patient for the right drug, as an example. And that's an area that we have particular focus in, as well as, I think, the area of immunology and looking at how do we modify the body's response to certain therapies to increase efficacy, looking at how can you dose higher and decrease the risk for immunogenicity.
Yeah, and maybe the only other comment I'd make is around AI. So we consistently see this focus around artificial intelligence, and I think we're going to continue to see that trend. But it's been interesting as we've engaged with targets. There's been a lot of discussions about it, and then the real question is, how do you integrate that into the current model? How do you train the current model? And I think it'll be exciting to see what happens over the next 12 to 18 months as that segment evolves.
On the other hand, Christina and Michael, I would love for you to address some of the greatest challenges you face in your space and why.
I think some of the challenges that continue to exist, certainly for earlier stage companies, is the continuous competition for funding. Even though we hope that the market will start to improve, there are a lot of companies that are all vying for the same funding. And so it's going to be important that companies really are looking at their data, have a core focus on data. I think previous years we saw an overindulgence in investing that was more conceptual in nature, and now investors have pulled way back from that and are looking for more proof of concept, phase 2 or later. And so it creates a challenge for companies because they need data to get the money, they need money to get the data, which speaks to what we're trying to accomplish with RCP Venture Capital. I think the other part of that is doing more with less, as I mentioned earlier, remaining capitally efficient. So thinking about how and when you grow as a company, and thinking about how do you have and having answers to difficult questions earlier than is typically done in the industry around things like pricing and path to reimbursement that can really help drive value as companies are talking to investors and trying to go through the process of fundraising.
And I think the challenges that funds are facing in terms of a capital raise are very similar to individual organizations. It's been a tough fundraising environment over the last couple of years, as Christina had mentioned, and it really is those activity levels focused on identifying the different sources of capital that align with your fund thesis. So it's I think easily overcome, but we're facing that similar challenge.
To shift gears a bit, ESG and DEI have been prominent topics in the investment industry, and I would love to hear your thoughts on how you both are addressing these topics.
Sure, absolutely. Well, certainly as a women-led firm, RCP Venture Capital is sensitive to companies that are women and minority-led, but as a investment thesis, we are very much focused on the data, on the science, on the market opportunity, and that's what leads our decision making. But it's certainly something that we pay attention to and are thoughtful of when we're looking at the leadership of companies. But ultimately, our decisions are based on the benefit, the thoroughness of the data, and the market opportunity, and that's what guides us.
We've covered a lot of ground today and wanted to see what your future plans are for the firm.
Our future plans are certainly a Fund 2 and ultimately a Fund 3 as well. We want to continue with our value-based partnership, so providing value beyond the deployment of capital through leveraging commercialization expertise via RCP, but also within our network, and the continued investment in companies that are really poised to have an impact on the human condition, either in changing the healthcare landscape through better diagnostics, precision medicine, and better therapeutics. And we're really excited for what the future holds, and ultimately, hopefully, our ability to be able to invest in more companies and make higher level investments.
And certainly there is a tremendous opportunity to expand the value creation activities that we're providing to our portfolio companies, certainly through rapid commercialization partners, but also through our industry partners as well as we build out that playbook. And then the other thing I would say is, as we continue to expand our relationships within the private equity and venture capital space, to be able to position our portfolio companies to those partners for larger incremental levels of funding that will allow them to move their program forward. So again, we're very excited about what we're building.
Well, Christina and Michael, I want to thank you both so much for sharing your perspective with our listeners.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure, and we look forward to continuing the conversation.
Yeah, thanks very much, Elana. We appreciate the time.
And thank you for listening to the EisnerAmper podcast series. Visit EisnerAmper.com for more information on this and a host of other topics. And join us for our next EisnerAmper podcast when we get down to business.